Hi, everyone. Welcome to Immigrant Faith Stories. Today, we are talking with Hahn Shols. She is a Vietnamese American. Hahn is married to Chris. In fact, today is her 31st anniversary. So, happy anniversary, Hahn.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to be talking with Hahn today. Hahn and her husband, Chris, are both realtors, have a family business. They're based in Silicon Valley in California. Both of them love serving their church, the Bethel Church of San Jose, and Hahn loves working out and spending time with her family. So, welcome, Hahn.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Let's go back to the beginning of your immigrant journey. When and why did you leave Vietnam and come to America?
Around April 1975, well, prior to that, we knew that something was going on. The war was happening, and we were told to come in at night very early, like 8 or 9 p.m. And I remember my parents, prepared the house with bars and locks and all that stuff, but not really I wasn't clear what was going on until close to the time of leaving Vietnam, that we were told to move to a compound in Saigon, 1975. So we were leaving this compound. I'm not sure exactly the time frame, but I remember the day that they told us, this is it. You need to leave. It's critical. So they told my father that if he wasn't leaving and he's to stay, that he would be captured and he would be in prison. So we all prepared to leave, and the day that we left, we basically grouped up. There's 8 of us, so we grouped up to 2 by 2, and we ran as fast as we could to on it. The plane, it was a freighter plane. It was very big, and I was only 12 at the time. So I remember running as fast as I could, and we made it inside. And within an hour leaving Saigon, the captain came on to the speaker and was just share with us that Saigon was just bombed within an hour from leaving. And then we landed to Thailand, and from Thailand we end up in Guam, and then from Guam we went to Camp Pendleton. And Camp Pendleton is located in San Diego. And I remember some really fun stories. We couldn't figure out the weather. It was just like, it was so hot during the day, and it was very cold at night. So we played this little game that my dad and I did. We trade meal tickets for blankets. And then we would go to different camps for better food. So, in fact, until this day, I remember chop suey. I cannot eat chop suey because we had a lot of chop suey. It's just something that we did for fun.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story. And I know that your family, so they fled Vietnam. Afraid for their lives, and so now you're in America. Tell us about what was going through your mind. What kind of emotions you were feeling? I'm sure it was all mixed because you were a young girl. You were only 12 years old. Were you happy to leave your country, or were you angry or sad?
I think I have all those emotions. A lot of it was anger. Not sure what's going to happen because we all of us except for my dad, he spoke English, but not any of us. So it was just like, it was scary starting starting new school, starting new life, and just in America and not sure what people think of you. it just all of those emotions, scary, excited, and not knowing anyone, starting life all over again in America, and just to live in the South on top of that. It was very scary, and people look at you and they stare at you, and you didn't know why they're staring at you, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been tough, because your family, the life that you used to live in Vietnam was in a way completely the opposite of what you're living now in America. Isn't that right? Because you were a wealthy family, your dad had a good job, and it was different now in America. You were all starting from scratch.
Right, right. It was very tough. My dad was somewhat successful. He traveled quite a bit for the American Embassy. We saw him maybe once a month or maybe twice a month. But he is this man, very well, done very well in Vietnam. I remember having the mom had the maid and the driver and all those things that you have when you have a good, and to come to America and watching my father pumping gas, it's his first job. That was tough. And remember, remember that he didn't come home to and do any kind of arts jobs that he could, just to make it and just to make money for our family.
I'm sorry. Do you want to take a break?
No, I'm good. Sorry.
So talk us through now your faith journey. How and when were you introduced to Jesus?
My first school experience was in sixth grade. They put me in sixth grade. There's a gap there, because all the months that we were leaving from Vietnam to America, and then I started school. I started sixth grade in I think it was September, August, and I started the elementary school in Asheville, North Carolina. And my first American teacher happened to be a Christian, Mrs. Nancy Randall. And she just loved on me. Every Sunday she drove for half an hour to pick me up and just spend Sunday with her and just spend time with her at her house, and took me to a church. I wasn't sure what this Christian thing was about, but I just know the people that share with me, Mrs. Nancy Randall and her husband Ed, were basically, they just shared love with me. And later on, I can tell that they were Christian, and they introduced me to a lot of people at church. And every Sunday I was loved on. And moving forward, this is why I serve at church, starting with children's ministry, because I just feel like if I can make a difference in a child's life, like she did with me, it's a way of paying back.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know these are painful memories, and probably some of these questions are triggering some hurt in you.
You would think that it'd just be okay by now, but these are happy tears.
Praise God. So then I know that you were introduced to church now, and you also had Mrs. Randall and her husband showing you love, and you somewhat understood, a little bit of God's love through them. But how did that change over the years? And when you went to college, how did your faith grow? And also, how did you meet your husband?
I walked away from God so many times, I lost count, but he just would not let me go. One other thing that in college, I happened to go to a Christian college, Berea, Kentucky, and immediately I was gravitate to a group called Campus Crusade. Met a lot of wonderful friends there, and I think I just got into the wrong crowd and just had a lot of fun. I was, for the first time, I saw people like me, a lot of friends, a lot of really friendly people from all walk of life, and I thought, wow, I really like this. You know, I got some attention, and people was not making fun of me. I can talk, I can make friends, and then I think I just got too much fun, and I just think, okay, I'm going to take control of my life now. It's just, and walked away from the Lord, and I met my husband moving forward. Met him in 1987, and then we went to a business conference, and that's when we accepted the Lord in our lives. And that was March, and we got married in May in 89, but we met way before then. But that's when we start our journey of getting to know God and just come together as husband and wife. And then I remember talking to my husband. I said, need to give back how God had blessed me. And that's when we start our ministry at Bethel Church.
Wow.
Much later, but not right away, but much later.
Tell us a little bit more, maybe elaborate on how your husband and you, both of you, because that's an interesting story, how both of you together came to Christ. And what was that? You went to a conference. So could you take us through that?
Yeah, it was an interesting story. We had a catalog business together. We went to a business conference, and business conference usually go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but we never were interested in attending this thing that they have on Sunday morning. We knew it was a church service, but we were not interested. At the time, our business mentors happened to be Christian, and we a lot of friends kept inviting us to Sunday service. We go, no, that's okay. Well, we're not interested. That had nothing to do with business, so we just say forget it. But the interesting weekend was in March, this year was March, and it was what we did is, this was March 1989. Now we got married in May 1989. So that weekend, Saturday night, Chris and I could not sleep. We were just really uneasy, and we were pacing the floor, and we say, we don't get this, why can we not grow a business? We're working so hard, and just like we asked the same questions to our friends, our mentors. It's just like, why can we get this, our mind around this? And they just say, you know what? Only thing I can tell you is that you need to come Sunday morning to understand this. So Sunday morning, we were up already. Couldn't sleep that night. So we went to the church service that everyone was talking about. We sat there, close to each other, my husband and I, and we heard two testimonies. It was so powerful. It was so touching, and we could relate to the people. So we stood up and we went forward and we accept Jesus in our lives. And then we were surrounded by a lot of friends, and they pray over us. And I cannot begin to tell you our business, our marriage, just incredible how God had got a hold of us, of our hearts. And then our business just starts thriving because we just feel like we put God first. And then we start trusting Him and we start working as hard as we could. But meanwhile, we have God on our side. He was ahead of us. He just started blessing us. And our business just took off.
Wow, God is so good.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
that story. I really do.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how your faith affected your relationships and the way you lived, and especially relationships with your family, your parents, and your siblings. Tell us a little more about that.
I think that my journey with the Lord was very rocky. I questioned Him a lot. I was very angry. I remember questioning God, like, why me? Why did you give me the family that you did? Why my parents? They're not loving. I think that to God, I learned to forgive Him and to know that they're not perfect, and I trust in God and not in my human parents, and just to forgive them and just to keep my eyes on God and to trust Him, and learn to the years to forgive and just pray for them. And same thing with other friends. I just know we as human, for myself especially, we're not perfect, but God is, and His love is consistent. And I think that's one thing that I can say, that I pray about everything, and I just learn to trust God. And the first thing I do in the morning is give my day over to Him.
Yeah, yeah. His love is so steadfast, so consistent
Yes.
that we can depend on it, even though we are imperfect. How did you deal with? I'm sure initially, as an immigrant, and you dealt with some amount of racism, discrimination. How did you deal with that? I mean, how are you processing all that?
If you can imagine, children in middle school and high school are very cruel, especially in the South. Not to say that not everyone was like that, but everything that come out of your mouth, it's just like they were making fun of you, the way I spoke. And I was very angry. And in fact, instead of being angry, I channel my anger into studying. And I just had to focus on something that I'm in control. And I think that's how I had to work through that, even though I was depressed and angry and just being just trying to get myself surrounded with people that believe in me, like a Nancy Randall, and people that were supportive, instead of people that was just making fun of me. And those I not too much later I realized that those people doesn't have confidence in themselves, so they just express their confidence by picking on me.
Yeah, that could be true. Yeah. Um, So what would be your advice then to new immigrants or new refugees, anyone who's living in a foreign country and they're finding themselves in a new culture? They're probably feeling lost or lonely. What advice do you have for them?
Looking back, I would say that find a community, that surround yourself with friends, the people that support you, and it's okay to ask for help. And I think that just keep in mind that there are blessings at the end of every hard journey, and that usually I ask now, looking back, looking forward, I often ask God, what is it you want me to learn from this journey, from this hardship? And I feel that there's blessings out of every hardship. And I hope that if I can just say that, just surround yourself with some good people and connect with the church, connect with other immigrants, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah, that's really helpful advice. And I when I listen to your story, I marvel at God's sovereignty and goodness. How you as a little girl in Vietnam and now in America, and throughout your life, as you narrate your story, I see how He was literally chasing after you and never let you go. He was so good to you and so faithful. So this story is so powerful. Thank you for sharing your heart with us, and we enjoyed talking to you. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say, like to add?
If I can add that, when I took my eyes off myself and focus on God and trust Him and serve Him, and just know that He would take care of me, I think that's the greatest blessing of, if I can share of this journey, and that when you give back and when you take your eyes off yourself, God will use you on a daily basis if you let Him.
Yes, absolutely. Amen. Thank you so much, Hahn, for doing this and for sharing your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.